Chairman, we're ready when you're, sir. Chairman Weider.
Okay, we're going to start. Okay. I would like to call the Budget and Finance Committee scheduled for Wednesday, November 30th to order. And I'll ask our clerk to do the roll call. She's here. Oh. Lauren. Oh, you have it. I'm here. Okay, good. Okay, this is our first meeting of and only meeting of the night. I'll ask everyone to rise. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance by Nicole.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for
all. So everyone should have all the schedules. Actually, there are two schedules in front of you. The first one that we're going to take on, we're going to take it on as a discussion even before it's moved to second. And that's the one that was presented to us, to the committee by Legislator Fasiglia. I'll ask Legislator Fasiglia if you could do a little presentation and tell us a little bit more about your schedule. The one
with the colors. Pretty one that Nicole did.
you would see on top, it says legislative amendment as proposed by Legislator Fasiglia. It's right on top. It's a single page. Yes, it says on top. Okay. Okay, everyone has a copy. Okay, Legislator Fasiglia.
Thank you, Mr. Weider. I think it's important that we have a discussion on a few items that I saw in the budget. I probably could lock myself in a room for a week and come up with 54 amendments, but I'm going to start with really the major one, and that's a 10% tax decrease. Aside from public safety, our most important responsibility is to defend every penny of the taxpayers' money and keep taxes as low as possible. We all hear it from our constituents when either campaigning or in a nondescript casual conversation that property taxes are too high and one of the driving forces to move out of Rockland. The public has been conditioned over the years to be thankful for no tax increase or even a slight increase, which I find unacceptable. I believe we are now in a position to deliver a 10% tax decrease, approximately $13 million. I would even amend this amendment and go to 20%, $26 million. It's my understanding the fund balance is approximately estimated right now at $200 million. Being flush with cash is not a license to spend it as we see fit in other areas before first considering a tax decrease. It's not our money. When a fund balance reaches a certain point, part of it should be returned to its rightful owners. Several months ago, we had no issue eliminating the motor vehicle tax and energy tax, approximately the same $13 million. Was there a discussion about reducing these taxes as opposed to giving a tax decrease of the same amount? Both being based on the fund balance. Now, we all know budgets are subject to what I refer to as the rose-colored glass theory. A dollar is a dollar when we do not want to spend, as opposed to the expenditure being not that much in the whole scheme of things when we do want to spend. And I fully understand the dynamics of eliminating some taxes as opposed to others. The energy tax affects a wider swath of people. Slumlords and landlords in general benefit at the expense of tenants for a property tax decrease. However, slumlords and landlords also benefit from the energy tax elimination. If need be, we can amend the decrease to residential properties only, condos to 1 to 4 family homes, or somewhere in between. I would note that the wider swath of people still amounts to the same 13 million. There is no perfect scenario, winners and non-winners in every piece of economic legislation. As for the 2% tax cap, I refer to it as the mythical 2% tax cap. It came into play at a time to force fiscal discipline and had a carrot and stick element, a rebate to homeowners if the municipality stayed under the cap. There is no longer a benefit and there is no downside to breaking the tax cap, unless you're afraid someone will use it against you in a campaign. Something that seems to be lost is that all we are doing is loaning the public their own money. It's a one-year loan. Charles, I am reducing your county tax 10% this year, but I may have to take it back next year. Okay. Anything over the 10% would be the normal increase anyway, and perhaps we would not even need to take the 10% back. Anything less becomes a benefit over 2 years. We have more than sufficient reserves to weather any downturn in the economy, which always falls into that rose-colored glass theory, and I do not believe there will be such a tremendous downturn. This decrease will not affect our bond rating either. But most importantly, I believe this would be the beginning of eliminating the county portion of property taxes over the next decade based on our current trajectory. Someone said to me that it's our job to be stewards of the people's money. In other words, this would not be the way to go, even though we previously eliminated the 2 aforementioned taxes. I say we are right now at the point that all 3 decisions, plus protecting the reserves, can be done while remaining fiscally responsible. That concludes my comments for that amendment. If anyone wants to respond, the other 3 are very limited comments. But I believe we should have had a discussion. It's time to have a discussion on decreasing property taxes.
May I suggest, if you would, since the others are, it's only another 3 items.
Sure.
If you could just elaborate
Just
on that.
elaborate, okay. Well, I guess there's no secret, this is the 3rd straight year I'm trying to eliminate the budget consultant, which is $90,000 this year. Everyone knows my feeling regarding this expense. While it may have been necessary or acceptable at one time, it should not be used as a crutch for individuals not wanting to engage in the budget process, if some even pay attention. This past year, we were able to do just fine with Nicole, and the Director of Finance even indicated at the November 17th B&F meeting that the consultant's performance was inconsequential. The FOIL officer, there is nice to have and need to have. I believe this is a nice to have. By eliminating what seems like a minor expense, this, like the budget consultant, is the way we protect the taxpayer's interest. I'm going to clarify this a little more in conjunction with the next amendment, DA's overtime. This line item for $200,000 appears every year, and like many other line items, is not questioned. The job of a department head is to constantly work to control and reduce expenses. There seems to be a perception that offices headed by elected officials can't be touched or they are our boss. It's the other way around. There is no evidence to me, having been to the DA's office for several matters over the years, that this office is being pushed to any limits. He has come here multiple times with hat in hand, and at least 3 occasions that I have voted against additional funding. This item really underscores the difficulty this body has in drilling down into each line item to differentiate between what we are told and presented to what is actually required, such as the Chinese tourism initiative, which I actually spent some time analyzing. So, thank you, Mr. Weeder. I've had my say.
Okay.
And
So this is,
you can please move forward accordingly.
so this is the process, and this is where these types of things would come up, and that's the committee. You know, Nicole has put together your schedule very, very, very clear. And, you know, this year the budget has been extremely easy. And we worked very cooperatively and collaboratively all around. And I'll expand upon the process tomorrow when the full legislature will vote on the budget. So yes, I appreciate your words, and you're not on the committee, yet you did come to many of the meetings and shown an interest. So is anyone here would like to, you know, usually we would move and second and then have a conversation, but, you know, I didn't know if there will be any legislators who would like to move a second and then have the conversation, so we had the conversation beforehand. So is there anyone who would like to move a second the amendments by Legislator Faciglio? So seeing there is none, I will now turn to.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a comment?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank you for extending Legislator Falsiglia the courtesy of hearing his amendments in committee for all of us to hear. I appreciate Legislator Falsiglia taking the initiative to, as not being a member of Budget and Finance, to develop his thoughts into a well drawn out schedule so that we could consider it. I don't necessarily agree with all of his findings, but I do appreciate his work. And I think I just wanted to comment on that, and I appreciate your giving him the opportunity to be heard.
Yes. You know, over the years, this has been the best way going forward. So I would like now to turn to Nicole in a very, very short synopsis, perhaps under 3 minutes. If you could tell us, because it's really easy. It's not that difficult. Tell us about what we are going to be voting on. It's essentially the budget that we have extensively reviewed and discussed over the course of these hearings in the last weeks. And we came out, I believe this would be a very, very small change. I think it's the smallest that I've seen, or one of the smallest that I've seen over the years. And easy to understand and vote on.
Good evening. What you have before you is a summary page, and then you have the actual amendment schedule, which will be sent over to the Finance Department. And the third page, just want to call people's attention to, this is the technical adjustments to the capital projects budget. The reason being, there were a number of resolutions that were passed after the October 1st submission of the proposed budget. And so these need to be included in the capital projects budget for 2023. So let's go back to the operating budget. And I'm going to summarize the very small changes that are being proposed. this evening before the Budget and Finance Committee. We have 3 new, what we call 224 or public benefit contract agencies. One is the Haverstraw River Wide Arts for $30,000, the Derek Shalom Center for $50,000, and Sparks PPD Incorporated for $50,000. That is being partially funded by money that was in the appropriation reserve in the proposed budget. There was $143,000 placed in reserve so that legislators would have an opportunity to use that to either increase agencies or add new ones. What we're doing here in this amendment schedule is we're leaving $63,000 in that appropriation reserve should there be additional agencies that the legislature would like to fund under the public benefit incorporation. So there'll be $63,000 left there. The other amendment to the budget by the legislature is the addition of a constituent services assistant. The workload has changed in the legislature, so that would be an additional person who will be on hand to assist all of the legislators. And the way we're funding this is by using appropriated fund balance of about $110,000. Now, you'll also see in this schedule, there are those items that are highlighted in red. These are the technical adjustments that came over from the finance department. We'll start with the Assistant Director of the Drug Task Force. This is a technical adjustment, and this is going to be as per a legislative resolution, which will be passed tomorrow evening. This was passed by the Budget and Finance Committee last week. This is a new position that's being added. Actually, it's a position that the district attorney had in his task force previously that was eliminated. They're bringing it back. So that we're considering a technical adjustment. But again, it's because the legislature will be passing that resolution tomorrow evening, and it would not have been in the proposed budget. There are other technical adjustments to some salaries in the county executive's office. Apparently, some of these salaries were not put in the proposed budget at the correct amount. So the finance department would like us to just make those corrections for them. And that is for the assistant county executive, who is a less than full-time position, the chief advisor to the county executive, the county historian, which is a very small position, it's part-time, and also for the coordinator of veterans burials. So those technical adjustments total $241,145. So together with the $110,000 and change of our legislative amendments, the total amount of money that we will be appropriating from fund balance is $351,670, which is very, very small. And in a year, in an $800 million budget, the total change that we want to make to it is fairly small. So that's what you have. So the property taxes remain the same as the proposed budget at $130.8 million, which is well within the 2% tax cap. I think I talked about that in my report. We're actually a little over $5 million under what we could have gone to in terms of being within the 2% tax cap. So that's it. So it's these two schedules together that will be considered tonight to go onto the full legislature tomorrow evening. The first page being the operating budget and the second page for the capital projects budget.
Okay. Legislator Yeager? Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Nicole, first of all, for everything you did for us this year, going above and beyond. And I know everybody's appreciative. So thank you. I just wanted to quickly respond to Legislator Falsiglia's proposals in the budget. And I want to begin kind of at the end. I've never been a believer in giving money back to taxpayers. And maybe that sounds bad to say when you say it out loud, but there's a reason for that. And the reason is because when you constantly reduce the amount of money that you have as a government, eventually there's going to come a time where you need a lot of it and you're not going to have it. My first job in government, well, my first job on this side of government, I started my career as a lawyer in the district attorney's office in Brooklyn. But my first elective position, I guess, was as a trustee in the village of New Hempstead. And the village of New Hempstead's roads back in 2003, when I started there, were very, very bad. But the trustees ran every time they ran on the idea that they were, reducing taxes by giving $3 off their, what at that time was a $200 tax bill. I mean, forget about making a cup of coffee. You couldn't even buy a bottle of water with it. And yet that's what they did. And so the roads were shoddy, full of potholes, because everybody was terrified of raising taxes. And I said to the mayor, just raise taxes $10 per household every year on average. Just do it, whether you need it or not. Because in 20 years from now, that's going to be enough money to pave every single road in New Hempstead. And they didn't listen to me, of course, because, what did I know? I was a neophyte. And so instead, what we did was we kind of pulled a fast one on all the residents and moved the garbage line from the New Hempstead line onto the Ramapo Town line. And that gave us the money to actually pave the roads. But there's no reason to do that. You just increase the taxes a little bit every year and you have enough to pay for things, and nobody should go crazy. And the other thing I said was, it's a tiny drop of the household budget for the year. The school taxes take up the lion's share. The town takes up the, lioness's share, and, the little marmot, which is which all it does is the thing that eats the tiny little bugs, is what the county is ultimately. I mean, it's nothing. And when we're giving back 10% of this money, yeah, it's a lot of money, $13 million, but per household, it's $120 to the average household. I mean, it doesn't even, you can't even buy you can't even go buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks once a week for that money. It isn't worth doing something like this. And I'm not saying it's political, Charles, because I know you're not, but there's no purpose in my mind to doing that, especially with what's coming on the horizon. We have no idea what's going to happen. Everybody's talking about a recession next year. There's no evidence yet, other than a very slight, that the Fed's tax increases, that the Fed's rate increases are having an effect on inflation. People can't buy things. The mortgage market is going to tank if it hasn't already. We're going to lose millions of dollars in revenue from there. And then all of a sudden, our huge surplus, which is big, I'm not going to say no, is going to end up, I don't want to end up where we were in 2008 with a deficit that now we're going to have to bond on. Let's keep this money and not give it back to the people who are moving in now from the people who paid it already, and hold it and see what happens over the next 5 or 10 years. And if we slowly, it's like when you build when you build on a property now, they make you put a big hole in the ground that holds the water. They don't let all the water out at once. They let it drip out slowly over time, right? 10% is letting too much water out. There's no reason to. Let's give people zeros for the next couple of years. But to give it back is hard. It's hard to get it back once you give it back. And I think that we're better off seeing what's going to be happening and what's coming. Just found out tonight, somebody mentioned to me that that the numbers on the health payments was under by some amount. I don't even understand how we could be paying less or the same amount for our pension fund, considering that the market tanked this year. It's down 10% even with the upswing of the last couple of months. And who knows what's going to happen next year if there's a real recession? Nobody has any idea. And I'm not prognosticating. I don't know any better than anybody else. I mean, the only A I got, like I was telling Alden earlier, the only A I got in law school was accounting for dummies. But the extent of my fiscal knowledge ends there. But we can't do what you're asking, and I think it's wrong to do it for all the reasons that I've mentioned. Now, getting into the details of the other stuff, I can safely say, as a former member of the district attorney's office, that the DA's office is one of the few in the county that don't work 9 to 5. Of the cars in the back at 5:15 on a typical afternoon, most of them are from the DA's personnel because they're there later. Now, the DAs themselves don't get overtime. Let's not discuss that. The lawyers don't. But if something happens at midnight, if they have to go find somebody, if the investigators, the undercovers are making drug buys, they're not necessarily making drug buys between 9 and 5. And that's where the overtime is going. And I know that for a fact, having been there for close to 10 years. And so, you have to go. I'll finish in 30 seconds. And so, not only the fact that both the sheriff and the DA have been under budget for the past bunch of years, so it's not like it's not going anywhere. I mean, that's our fund balance. That's where a lot of it comes from, is those two offices over the years of being very frugal with the money we give them. As far as the auditor, I won't speak to that. And as far as the FOIL specialist being eliminated, it's actually a difficult thing to do FOIL. I did it when I was in the DA's office. I was the FOIL officer as well for a part of it. And if they're doing FOIL for 2,500 employees worth of material, they need somebody special for that. And it's an unfortunately intricate area of law. I don't believe that government should be in the business of, answering to every whim of every person who seeks documents of any kind at any time, and we have to stop everything to answer it. I think that it can be abused, and I don't know if it's being abused at the county level, but it certainly can be abused, and I've seen enough of it. So that's my response to that. As far as the material that Nicole presented, I'm in favor of it, and I want to thank in advance my expectation that this will get a unanimous vote, except perhaps for Charles. I won't speak for Charles on tomorrow. So I appreciate everybody, including especially the Republicans, helping the minority leader especially. So thank you. Oh, and Steve also. Thank you.
I'm going to assume that no one else has any comments because you've done such a terrific job, and you've probably presented every side of every equation of this. And I'm going to go out on a limb. I see Ms. Legislator Fasiglia itching to respond. Am I reading you right? I'll ask you if you could keep it to literally to, what was it? Please, I appreciate that.
Mr. Yeager is a top-flight litigator, and I could probably spend an hour here refuting, to some respect, everything he said. Unfortunately, of course, we have no judge, and it goes back to the rose-colored glass theory. I just want to point out, we have no control over the town or the village's taxes and the school district, so we could only work on what we have, but thank you.
Over the years, I've learned that in a legislative body, the right approach, and actually the proper name would be a consensus body. That's the way things are getting done. That's the way you're accomplishing things, and that's the way you're really productive and you can help people. So consensus and that's the way to go about it. So we have to have a consensus and have discussions and conversations which we had. I'm going to assume as well that the commissioner, who has been here almost to all of our budget review meetings, almost all of them, if not all of them, is also in agreeing with the schedules that we have, because it's not much changed. There's been extensively discussed and debated. But we feel that she deserves that even without the elimination of the budget consultant. Okay, I will now call the vote. I will now move in second. We'll go on to the three items on the agenda. Item number one, referral number 9541, accepting report of the Budget and Finance Committee after its review of the Rockland County proposed 2023 budget, and that's the schedule that we have. That is in front of us, just so we all, it's the one that says legislative amendments and technical changes. So moved by legislator Yeager, seconded by legislator Hofstein. Any discussion? Seeing there is none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Item number two, adoption of the 2023 county budget. Moved by legislator Jobson, seconded by legislator,
As amended, yes.
as amended, obviously, by legislator Grant. Any discussion? Seeing there is none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Item number three, appropriation of the budget items for 2023. Moved by legislator Earl, seconded by legislator Soskin. Any discussion? Seeing there is none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, the motion carries unanimously. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by legislator Wolf, seconded by legislator Grant.
Now,
Any what was it?
Cornell.
Oh, and Cornell. I was going to say almost everyone moved or second tonight items on the agenda. So you kind of got me. And I appreciate, Harriet, your participation over Zoom. Thank you very much.
I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing there is none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very, very much.